right away at 45, because if I had cut this, we'd be toast. So we actually have to tip this shaft. So let's get this off. And to go from 255 to 275, that's almost 2 flexes. So I'm going to start off with just tipping it an inch. And we'll get into our shaft cutter. And now we're really glad that we didn't actually tip or cut our shaft at the beginning. Go back over, get it back to 45. And then remeasure. Now it's a little stiffer.
Yeah, this dry fit process that Carson is going through now sometimes could seem and feel a little laborious, but you know, it's so important if you really want to nail every single piece of the build.
Well, I think the big part of that is the build or the fit is only as good as the build. So if you're not going to build it to the specs that you fit the person to, you can't really expect the club to perform the way it was supposed to. Right? So yeah, it's a little soft, so I'm going to go a little bit more. We're getting close.
So you can see for, you know, I know some of the people on here as well are, you know, facility owners and operators. You know, one of the things that we also did, you know, that shaft cutter, we spent a few bucks more on it. Wasn't too crazy, but you can see how it's basically dust free. And so that's what really allows us to minimize the number of square feet we need. You know, we can coach, fit, build all within the same 1,100 square feet. You know, that's about 120 square meters for my metric people out there. So, you know, pretty darn efficient use of space.
See, you're getting close.
Is this your driver you're building, Carson?
No, I guess I could have built the driver for myself. Might as well make another one. I think I'm going to build a 48-inch driver shaft just to go nuts. Look at that, 275 on the nose.
Nice.
All right, there we go. All right, so now we finally spec'd it out the way they want, we can finally make our cut. So because we're confident that we're going to get the right flex, the CPM diff, so I'm going to actually cut it on this line for that 45. So let's get it back in here. There we go. And then let's check it. Bingo. All right, so we got our head, we got length spec'd out. Now it's time to prep the tip. So I still like to use the old school method with X-Acto knife. I know a lot of people use sanding belt. We found that the sanding belt, it's very easy to like misspin it, right? If you slow down in one spot, then it becomes, it's not a perfect circle anymore. With the X-Acto knife, it's easy just to continue to press, work your way around, and keep it very consistent, and keep the roundness to the shaft.
Yeah, especially.
So I always mark off.
Especially if you're dealing with some ultralight stuff, like taking a 45-gram shaft to a sanding belt's pretty scary. That's an easy way to burn some inventory.
Yeah. So I always like to make one marking all the way around the shaft. You probably won't be able to see that, but I like to go right around just to give me that a tight ridge to start with. And we go always blade away, not this way, because you'll start to take off a ton of graphite, and that's a good way to ruin a shaft. So blade away, get into that original notch that we made, and just one quick push, and just work our way around. And when you do that with that notch, you're gonna get a nice clean line once you're done. and looks nice and clean, nice even. And all we're trying to do is scrape off the paint. Right, miss spot, go back. But
And
nice
that's
and consistent all the way around.
just to make sure, Carson, you kind of you depress the blade of the knife in, and then you tilt the knife forward away from you, right?
Correct.
Like, so the sharp part of the blade is pointed back at your body, and you're scraping, not cutting.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you tilted the blade handle back towards you, had the sharp point pointing away.
Yeah, you definitely don't want to do that way. With
Yeah.
the sharp blade away, yeah, it's always away. So then you finish with a nice clean product with a nice perfect round. Looks a lot more professional if anyone ever wanted to pull that off, but it's clean. Now we've got the tip prep. This is clean. We could glue this right now, but one more thing before we glue is we have to swing this. Right, we want to make sure that the club's going to swing it right before we start the glue. So we want to get this at D2. So I always recommend you, if you can, get an old grip that you pull off and just cut it open. Right, that's the easiest way to get a very accurate result. Because this guy's going with a standard grip, so we're just going to slide this on here just like that. Put the head on. And see what the swing weight's at. See if we need to add weight. Okay, so we got, ooh, all right, D5. So we're gonna actually have to counterbalance this a little bit.
Yeah. What is the TaylorMade stuff real heavy again this year?
Yeah, TaylorMade is really heavy. So their stock TaylorMade is D5 and D6, depending what shaft.
Yeah.
So that's their stock this year. So it's not surprising to see it's swing weight heavy. When we want to go lighter, we'll counterbalance it. Yeah, it can get to D8. So we can start to glue then, because we're gonna have to counterbalance it at the other end. So whenever we make glue, right, we pull out our digital scale and we use a two-part epoxy. So part A and part B. The part A is it's actually a 10-to-1 weight ratio. Sorry, 10-to-7, not 10-to-1, sorry. 10-to-7 weight ratio. So 10 parts A, 7 parts B. So we're gonna mixing a little mixing cup. We're gonna tear it to 0. And we got part A. And I'm gonna do half of that because we're only doing one shaft. So I'm gonna go 5 grams with part A and 3.5 with part B. Going this way, you get the right mix. And the splash. There we go. 5.
Just while Carson's doing that, a couple other things for people to notice. You know, a little silicone work mat like this is a great thing to put down to preserve your countertops. It's flexible, so when you get epoxy that dries on it, you can just kind of bend it, it cracks off and keeps the place looking nice.
Yeah, so we definitely get epoxy everywhere.
Yeah, it's pretty tough.
Okay, so we use some glass beads in all of our mixes, just helps create a little bit more abrasion, helps center the shaft as well. We always put it into a smaller thing so it doesn't go everywhere, and we just want to coat the top just so there's some glass beads in there. And when you start to mix it, you'll start to feel you'll actually hear it and feel the grittiness when you do the mix. I'll pull that off. And we're just going to stir this up. Make sure we get everything, get all the sides. Pull that all to the middle. So we want to make sure we get a good mix.
Yeah, so Carson, for the people out there that, you know, are maybe going to go epoxy their first club after watching this, any tricks for them to know when they've done a good job with the epoxy mix? Because that's something that's pretty important.
Yeah, you're going to start to feel a very different consistency to it once you get it all mixed up. Big thing is make sure you don't leave anything on the side. So you want to pull everything from the sides. And also when you go to do the actual like gluing of the epoxy, use a different tea or popsicle stick, whatever it is that you're using, because you never know if you have like some of the part A or part B still left on it. So you want to make sure you just get that all mixed up. You'll actually start to see the color change a little bit with these two parts, where it gets a little bit more gray. And we'll start to thicken up as well. And you know what? I'm going to put a little bit more glass beads because I like to feel a little bit more grittiness to it when I do it. And there we go. That's a little better. And what you'll feel like when you got some glass beads in there or center shaft, when you get the actual tip on there, when you start to screw it down, or I'll say twist it down, you actually feel that grittiness. Now, before I put the tip on, one more thing that we like to do here, we're going to flow the shaft before we glue the tip. So we're going to find the weight setting, but we're also going to flow it. So I'm going to grab our laser pointer, and I'm just going to attach our laser pointer to the shaft. And I'm going to stick it in here. So what we're trying to do is trying to find the strongest point, most consistent point. So you can see that the laser is on this wall here. All I'm going to do is twang the shaft and try to get it going straight up and down. So that's not bad. So see how it's going basically straight up and down.
That's a pretty good start, man.
No big. That's a pretty good start.
Did you
bang on right up the bat?
Did you plan that? Is this made for TV?
I did not plan that. That was a huge fluke.
All right.
So I'm just going to mark this spot just in case if this is the one. But what I'm going to do now is rotate it just slightly to see if I can make that a little bit better. And what you'll start to see is when I do that again, if this is better, this is better. No, maybe not. So see how when it slows down, see how it starts to get a little circular and oval? You don't want that. Right now you can see it, see how round it's getting? That's not a good sign. That's not what we want. So I know I want to go back the other way. So again, I'm just going to undo it. And let's try it from my little mark. I'm going to go the other way, see if we can get that initial spot a little bit better. Maybe I just fluked out on the very first one.
Yeah, I think you just nailed it on that first one, man. That looked awesome.
Wow. Yeah, that was a huge fluke. So I did nail on the first one. That never happens. Usually it takes you like 8 or 9 tries before you find it. But so now we just mark off. I marked it off on that spot right there. So I'm going to make that the top of my shaft when I go to actually epoxy the tip on. And this is important when you figure out like what setting it's supposed to be. So I'm going to make this spot a little bit bigger because I didn't think that was going to be the one. Now, I did kind of cheat because Acura does tend to mark off a spot. So I wanted to see how good they were. Sometimes they're really good, sometimes they're not. So I kind of cheated. So I got my tip. I'm going to pull this off. So I do know I need it 1 notch higher on a standard grip. So start off with the ferrule. Ferrule on. And now when it comes to the actual epoxy process, I'm going to throw this tea out that I use for mixing and get a new one. And we're just going to get some epoxy right onto the tea. Good amount. And we're just going to go right in. And we're just going to mix it around so we kind of coat the inside of that tip. Leave that there. I can throw that tea out. Good point. So there are a couple companies, actually, one main company Titleist, they actually have a hole at the bottom where the screw goes through. If they have a hole, we do use, I'm going to pull this off before that. We've got these little plugs that go in the bottom. The little plastic pieces here that go at the bottom inside of the tip. So throw that in before you actually use that tea and coat it. So that this way all the epoxy doesn't drip through and then you clog the screw hole. So you don't want that, because then you just ruin the tip. Sorry, so as I was talking, I was dripping, so let's do that again.
Now, I think, are you putting the tip on this way because you have the curing cell and then putting the curing cell?
Yes. So,
yeah, so if you don't have, so the curing cell is that machine behind Carson, and you'll see it in a second. What it does, it actually heats the epoxy, so you can cure 24-hour epoxy in about 5 minutes. If you weren't using one of those, then we'd recommend that you put the tip back into the head at the appropriate setting and then align the shaft. Right now, Carson's going to align the shaft with the desired setting and then, cure it so it's ready quickly. Also, those curing cells, if you're going to get into building, just save so much time, pretty cheap. So yeah, I would highly recommend those.
push. I'm just going to clean up the epoxy.
Yeah, one of the I'd say one of the most important club building tools would be 2-inch by 2-inch paper towel squares.
So before I put it in the curing cell, I am going to square up this club with the alignment once it's in. So just got to turn it just a little bit, just to make sure that top here that I marked is not the top in the right setting. And then we're going to put it in the curing cell. So it does take about 11 minutes at 300 degrees to cure the 24-hour epoxy. And then it'll be 100% cured. We did get to test this with a couple of long drive guys. That was the most nervous I've ever been after using the curing cell. Because I hope this head doesn't go flying down the range, because we just built it. I think Justin James was the first high-speed guy that we did this for, and he's swinging at 150 miles an hour. So I was a little skeptical on how well this curing cell worked, but after that, I was like, yeah, if it works for him, it works for everyone.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I think those curing cell, it's kind of like a good shaft puller, or a cell phone. Like once you've got one, you're probably never going back to life without one. They're pretty high volume up there at the lab. So you can see that one's got 7 clubs. So you can do, for most people, that's a full iron set right now. So, you can line the full iron set up down there. Driver heads, as you can see, don't fit in there quite as well. They also have smaller ones where it's only 4 clubs.
Yeah, 4, and they have non-digital as well, where you can go manual. That's just for the setting the temperature and time.
Yeah.
Digital is nice because once you have it set for the type of epoxy you have, you just hit a button and you're ready to go.
Yeah.
We got 15 minutes to go for this.
Yeah. So
after this, it's pretty simple. You're just gonna throw the grip on, counterbalance it first, and then throw the grip on, and then make sure that everything specs out the way it did.
So I'll tell you what, while we're waiting for that, maybe we've got 3 questions that have dropped in the Q&A. We can definitely handle a few more as well. So from Kevin, this one came in on iron fittings. When you are unsure about to go in steel versus graphite, let's say the golfer is really in between, what do you do? I guess it's a tough question, because you've got some golfers, like you see DeChambeau playing graphite iron shafts, right? I was on the phone the other day with Scott Brown, another PGA Tour player who's migrated from a 130 gram Nippon shaft into 125 gram Mitsubishi graphite shaft. So one of the things I think is that it's not that kind of, it's not the same as it used to be, where okay, graphite is all lighter and it's all more flexible and steel is all heavier and steel's all stiffer. You know, they can make graphite stiffer. So, um, you know, a lot of it I would say is to look at the ball flight characteristics you're trying to create, you know, and which one of the shafts is going to be best suited to that. Carson, have you had any guys in lately that you've kind of had to work through that are sort of on the fence as to whether they should go graphite or steel?
Yeah, it's typically a lot of it when it comes down to the weight as well. Like when we start to go through the speed set process, a lot of guys, when it comes to the weight of the shaft, it's the guys that are the bubble ones that are around like that 90, 100 gram that do the best with. Those are the guys that we have to kind of go between steel and graphite.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it just depending on, yeah, what's the ball play we're trying to create. Is there a certain feel that they're looking for? Some people just prefer one over the other, right?
Right.
Or like, is there injuries that we're trying to prevent? We get a lot of the I'll say older guys that have a lot of joint injuries, so graphite typically is a little bit better spot for them because it just damps a little bit of vibration.
Yeah, I think the injury one is a big one for sure. You know, definitely people hand, wrist, elbow injuries. You know, the graphite can significantly reduce the vibration, which is a good thing. The other thing too, you know, like again, just I always, I always want to try and ask questions that help the golfer reach the decision they want to make, because then, then they're more accountable for their decisions and they're well thought out. So I would consider like, well, how long do you want to have the set of clubs for? You know, some people change once or twice a year. Some people feel like they're making a 7 to 10 year investment. So if I've got, let's just say I've got a 50-year-old guy that's looking to get 7 to 10 years out of his clubs, and we're having this discussion, I ask how long you want to have them. Okay, what do you think you're going to be like in 7 to 10 years? Do you think you're going to be as strong, as fast as those things? His answer may be yes, and then we go with steel. Or, he may not be of the, workout type mindset, physical maintenance, and that could push him to graphite. So, I think, yeah, and asking the right questions will help you guys reach the right mutual decision on that type of stuff. But I do think it's important to realize, with modern graphite, you can get it heavier, you can get it stiffer than what's available in steel. Let's go. Okay, we got one here from Glenn. What's the best CPM reference to have a target idea of areas, numbers, CPM for each person? So I mean, we've used the Mitchell CPM chart for, I guess for years now, right? What do you do there, Carson? I know where my kind of benchmark is, and then I work off of that.
Well, yeah, I think the big part is just like I would say I don't know if I have a set one that I want people to hit. It's more of like I just want to make sure I match what I fit them to, right?
Yeah,
so I don't have a specific flex that I fit a person to. It's just if they did better with a certain flex, CPM that and build off of our baseline.
Yeah, we'll use it, more for matching. So if you get a standard chart, your standard Mitchell frequency chart, and you've basically got the slope that matches frequency across length, you can use that as a guide. But I think it's also important to understand, while we use frequency from a matching perspective, it does have limitations. It really only is measuring that last, 5 inches or 6 inches of the shaft that's clamped in there, right? So it's going to tell you what's happening there. But if the shaft has a totally different bend profile, even if you match frequency, you're going to get a different overall performance. So just want to, use that as for matching within a set or matching from one club to the next. And it's not the be all and end all, but it's what we've got for right now. Do you guys have a CPM chart guide you use in order to recommend a certain flex to a customer? Yeah, I think, we maybe covered it there. The way we go through it, is like, for example, just with this build Carson is doing now, would have gone through a fitting. We got the optimized driver results, and then Carson's going to spec out that fitting driver, and the build he's doing, he's matching that same shaft to the fitting shaft. So this is how we know the built driver is exactly the same as the fitted driver. So we're not CPM matching, whatever, hazardous smoke to Ventus Black, right? Because even if you match frequency, those are going to be totally different bend profile of shafts. What is your go-to solution when you need to add weight at the end of the club on the grip side? So there's a couple options. Where are you going, Carson?
I think my go-to is usually, well, if you can't change grip size, I go with lead tape. The old lead tape.
That's kind of my favorite. Is I like to I'll strategically replace grip tape with lead tape to get just enough, to get it to where I need it to be. There's a couple other options out there. A company called Switch Grips makes some counterbalance grips where they integrate weights. There's another company, I'm not sure if they're still around, Bocherry Golf. And then there's also some aftermarket products that if you need to make a big change, like north of 10 grams, where you actually core out the top of the grip. So, if you feel that's something that you might need, you might just want to have a couple of those in stock. All right, that is cleared out our Q&A. What do you got there? Oh, there's your lead tape. How many more minutes we got left on that driver?
Looks like it's got still 11 minutes because they have to get up to 10.
Ah, I see. Okay. So that's the beeping in the back is now up to 10.
That's the beeping in the back.
All right. Well, look, I'll tell you what, why don't we do this to see if we can keep it rolling instead of having to take a break. I am going to see if I can get up the stuff with the drivers we're going to go through. Okay, everyone bear with me 1 second here. See if we can get that slideshow up. Okay. All right. So one of the things we wanted to go through, and also this, I guess just to reiterate to people on there, now that you are part of the Golf Lab certified crew, we're going to be running these webinars on a regular basis, at least quarterly over the course of the year. So as long as your certification is active, you're able to attend all of them. And, each one we're going to go through, and part of it is just profiling new equipment that's out there. So today we wanted to start with, we'll look through the Sim 2, the Sim 2 Max, the Sim 2 Draw. Then we'll have Carson finish off the driver build, and then we'll hop back and do the comparison to last year's product. And that'll be about a wrap for this morning, but let's take a look. I'm not sure, Carson, if you can see on screen there, but we got the Sim 2 up there. So let me get my laser pointer. Okay, let's see. Why is that sucker not showing up? Okay. All right. I'm trying to get the laser pointer to show up here on the PowerPoint, but it's not cooperating. All right. Well, this way maybe I can point. Let's see. Whoa, I'm all turned around here. Uh-oh, this is tricky. Okay. So here's the very first thing that jumped out at me on this one. I always look at that center face on part of the driver first, because the first thing I want to see is always going to be where is the CG projection, right? So we're back here, we're on Sim 2, and that's why I was struggling. Haha. There we go. All right, sorry about that, folks. So we're on Sim 2. I'm always looking right here first, and this is just something that I've noticed over the years, but the drivers that seem to have a CG projection closest to geometric center really seem to be players' favorites, like favorites of the stronger players out on tour. 2016 M2 was another one. TS3 was one of those guys as well. Carson, what's some of the first stuff that jumped out to you about Sim 2?
The Sim 2, so the big thing was actually they've moved the CG back. Actually, what was interesting with the Sim 2 is that it wasn't really toe biased. It's actually slightly heel, which is kind of irregular for, I'll say, the tour drivers.
Yeah.
Typically with tour drivers, they're more toe biased, right? But I think because when we start to talk about the Sim 2 and tour players tend to need a little bit more spin, unlike the average amateur golfer, right? So it was kind of interesting to see that the Sim 2 as a low spin driver, a heel bias projection.
All right, let's go. Let me click ahead to our next one. Okay, Sim 2 Max. This one was super interesting to me. Yeah, what were the first couple of things that jumped out to you when you were testing?
Yeah, the first thing was like toe bias. Like the CGs projected towards the toe. Typically, you don't see that with a center of gravity that's as far back or as deep in most drivers.
Yeah.
And that was like that was the most interesting thing for sure. Because I don't think there's another driver on the market this year that a toe biased with a deep CG. The Sim 2 Max is the only one, especially that's fixed. You can manipulate the callaway that has a sliding weight to get a toe bias. But one that's fixed, you don't typically see that from the manufacturer, especially traditionally.
Yeah, I looked at this and I was just like, holy smokes, I feel like this has been designed for, I don't know, I'll call it like the new tour player. Because I'm going, okay, so CG's been dropped back, which is increasing spin rate, right? I'm going, raising CG, so increased spin and fade bias. To me, that just screams, wow, this is what I hear tour players asking for, right? Because until this driver, just about every single time you got to a company's high MOI, they also made a draw bias, because they're like, okay, they're profiling going, okay, well, the guy needs forgiveness. He probably slices. So let's make it forgiving and draw bias, which, isn't necessarily the case of what people need anymore. All right, now Max D, I mean, pretty much what I expected here. What about you?
Yeah, there's no surprises there with the Max D. I think every like draw biased driver is always going to be a little heel biased, a little bit more loft on the club than stated, I'll say.
Yeah. Oh, I never caught that before. Yeah. Crank the loft up a bit. I got you.
Yeah.
As we go back and forth, a little more spin, slammed it way to the heel. That's a big shift. As you can see when I'm going back and forth and just looking at the movement of that CG. So, two ways to look at it, right? This is the movement of the actual CG. And then of course over here, this is the CG projection. Before we get into some of the other comparisons, if we go through, I want to talk a little bit about the face mapping. So you'll also see with these that there's subtle variation, and there's variation from club to club here as well. But a lot of times, what companies are doing is they're matching the curvature of the face to the CG depth, right? And that's how, they can have a gear effect that is a match with the CG location with the curvature of the face. So something to bear in mind if you're dealing with a driver where you're pushing weight around. Okay, so if we move it too far forward and backwards, kind of like we did with that M3, you can run into some kind of funky gearing issues. Let's see, Carson, how are we doing on the timer over there?
Johnny is checking right now.
Is he? All right. What do we got there, Johnny?
Okay. He said we got like 8 more minutes.
What? Man. All right.
I think he said he just got the temp not too long ago. Should have turned it on before while I was talking. I was afraid of the beeping.
all right. No worries. Okay. Let's so let's go here. Carson, yeah, you can see right there behind you now. Perfect, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I can see. Yeah.
you know, one of the other ways that we want you guys to use this database is we've now got, you know, we put the time into building this out. We're going back, what, 4 years now? Is that right, Carson?
I think it's 4 years now. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's get this. Boom. I'll hide for a little bit so we can just focus on this. This is like crazy, right? I mean, this is what I feel like happens a lot in the real world. A guy comes in with his sim. He's like, oh, the sim 2 is out. Okay, cool. Let me get a sim 2. It's just the new evolution. So, you know, taking a look at this, holy smokes, are these different drivers, like wildly different. So yeah, Carson, I'll let you start. What's jumping out off the page there?
Well, I think one of the big things that I think a lot of people started to gravitate towards the Sim 2 for was the forgiveness. I think one of the big issues with the sim was that people were hitting a lot of squirrely shots when they missed the center. So especially all the amateurs that we get. So going up in forgiveness, it's like almost 9% more forgiving. People were getting a lot more ball speed more consistently with the Sim 2. So I think that's a huge adjustment, and that's throughout the whole Sim 2 lineup. Is the MOY jumped up significantly right across the board. And the other big thing was where the center of gravity is. They pulled it back just a little bit, so it's not quite as forward as the year before, which is what helps stabilize the face. But because it's projecting lower, it kept that low spin.
I can't believe the difference in the toe bias of the CG.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think the Sim 2 is they brought it right back almost to the middle.
Yeah.
Versus the Sim 2, the Sim 1, where it was actually like when it was neutral, it was more toe bias. The Sim did have a movable weight heel and toe, so you can move it around a little bit, which I think helped that. So when you did make a toe bias drive, you could just bring it towards the heel, and it did bring it more heel bias where you can find the center with it. But yeah, definitely at neutral, it's very different. If you look at the shape of the Sim 2, I think we'll grab one here. You can see how the profile of the weight, it's actually like kind of goes up to the toe with all the weight.
Hang on a second. Everything back in the way. Sorry, let me spotlight you. There you go.
There you go. Yeah, so if you look at the actual shape of the driver, a lot of the weight is up towards the toe now, and that helps bring it to the center. Whereas traditionally everything is kind of pear-shaped to the middle, and it typically makes a lot of drivers more heel biased. Right, so just bringing that up there gets it to the middle when you come down the driving plating position.
Paxton, I just saw your request for Titleist. We'll be going through Titleist on the next one, and then Callaway, and then Ping. So sorry, we'll work through them. But have you got all the TSI 3 stuff in the database now? We've got them in all the
TSI 3 and 2 is in the database.
Yeah, so, yeah, everything's in there. Everything's in there. Don't worry. Sorry, I know we're going with we're actually going with market share as our priority sequence. All right, so let's see. Now we got wow, this is insane too. So now we've got last year's Sim Max and we've got this year's Sim Max.
We're just switching our gallery view so I can see it.
Let me, yeah, here, I'll get this spotlighted back up. Boom, there you go.
There you go. Oh yeah, okay, now I remember the changes. Yeah, so a huge change was center of gravity, like CG location. The Sim Max 2, they dropped it like way back compared to last year, where I think it was like 10 millimeters change. I can't remember now. I can't read those numbers, but I thought it was close to 10 millimeters deeper in the head. So the forgiveness went up huge. Way more forgiving. One of the most.
I can read those off for you. Sorry, Car. So and this is, again, good stuff for people to talk through. So up here in the top right, you got head weight, CG height, and CG depth. So CG height, we visualize from this toe view of the club, how high it is above the sole of the driver. That's and then this CG depth is how far. Now, correct me if I say this wrong, please, Carson. We're looking at the top view of the driver. We've got the CG icon, and it's how far back it is from the midline of the hosel. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
So, Right. So that's why we mark out this orange line here. It's not from the front edge of the driver. Every club has a different face progression. And while it's something that we can measure, it is not how far back from the face, but how far back from the center hosel. So yeah, we had a CG height for the Sim 2 Max. It's been dropped almost 5 full millimeters, which is massive. The CG depth right here it's been dropped farther back on the new one, 5 millimeters. So I think that's huge movement. And the heel toe displacement, it's moved 3.5 millimeters. Like, this is not the same driver.
Yeah, it's really different. Like, to put in perspective, like a 3 millimeter change or a 5 millimeter change is very significant. Like, if you looked at the old sim drivers, when you move like that 10-gram weight from the toe all the way to the heel, you only moved it about 3 millimeters. The CG, like the net CG, only moved about 3 millimeters. So to drop a center of gravity 5 millimeters back and 5 millimeters lower in the head, that's a big change all around.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of mass that they've moved around in this new Sim 2 Max.
Massive. Okay, let's go through our last comparison here. All right, so we got Sim 2 Max D.
It looks like you have 2 Sim 2 Max Ds on there.
Johnny. Okay. All right. Well, we knew that was going to happen today. So we've got the full family profile over here. How are we doing with the timer on that epoxy over there?
Real close.
All right. Let's
got like 1 minute left.
What's that?
We've got like 1 minute.
All right. Let's head over. We'll start to get to work on that. It's over 95% of the way done. So taking it out a minute early won't hurt it.
Yeah, it won't. I'll move it all over.
All right, give us a second while Johnny gets those cameras switched around. We'll finish this off.
I do that.
There we go. Martin, saw your question come in here for how you get access to the database. So mentioned this earlier. Let me swap back here. So email access, you'll get access via email. It's going to be going out here in the next 24 to 48 hours. Now everyone's completed. A couple other things I just want to reiterate. These are for the use of Golf Lab certified professionals only. This stuff is not to be shared, social media, anything like that. That's private information. It costs a lot of time and money to get it. We're very happy to share it with you guys. We just want to keep it all within the family. So yeah, there we go. Carson, back over to you, ready to finish this build off whenever you are.
I'm back. So I'm just going to pull this out. I'll turn that off.
Oh no, here we go. No, that's perfect, Johnny. I'm gonna get you spotlighted there. Beautiful.
All right, so let's get this in the right setting. Okay, so we gotta get the swing weight down. So right now with grip, I believe we had it at D5, D5.4. So we gotta figure out what the right amount of lead tape we're gonna need on the butt to get this to what we need. So let's just pull a nice big piece of lead tape. I'll put it on the end here. Too much. So I got the C9, so it's good. So always a lot easier just to take some off to get us to wait. Just measure that, put that on there. D1, so just slightly less.
That's where, you know, what you guys see Carson doing there, that's the same process. If we want to increase swing weight, we'll do the same thing. We'll just dry hang it off on the tip of the shaft.
There you go, D2 money.
All
All
right.
right, so just pull that off. We got the grip that we're using. And I'm gonna do this here before I get on the machine. So what we're gonna do with the lead tape, we're just gonna do almost like the ping wrap with this. I'm just gonna start from the top, and we're gonna work our way down the shaft.
It's like taping your old hockey sticks, huh?
Yeah, I'm just gonna work our way down. And yeah, we don't want to make we're gonna keep it nice and tight. No overlapping, just like how Ping does their clubs.
Yeah, a nice thing about lead tape too is that it stretches a bit. So, you know, Carson's able to pull on it to keep all the wrinkles and stuff out. So that way the golfer doesn't feel any ridges or anything underneath the grip.
There you go. Now I'm just gonna get this in. I'm just gonna put one piece of tape on the bottom half. So I'm just got a marker here. Like to mark out how long the grip's gonna be. So I know that the tape's not gonna go past that. I'm gonna take one half. When I do this with lead tape, I want that bottom half just a little bit built up so it matches up a little bit more with that lead tape. One piece of tape. Smooth out all the wrinkles. Yep, push it out. Let's work on all this. Let me get some solvent on here. There we go. Just 3 pumps. We're gonna mix up, get all the solvent, kind of coat the inside of the rubber. And just drip some on, so nice and wet. And just slide the grip on. Just grab my towel. And dry it off, and we're all set. Now, last thing we do always, make sure the grip is on all the way so it's not loose. And we're gonna spec out the driver one more time. So we're gonna check for the finish length. Bang, 45. It's like I knew what I was doing. And final swing weight of D2. And that's it. That's our driver build.
Nice.
Ready to take it to the course.
All right. That's awesome. So that was a great job there, Carson. I think maybe what we'll do now, we've got one more thing we said we were going to do, and that was just to see, let's see if the tip adjustability for the Sim 2 matches up historically with what TaylorMade's always been. All right, so we got a couple of minutes left. Let's go, let's check. Why don't you throw it back to standard, and then go ahead, check it at standard, and then check it at loft up, and let's just see if the face still closes as much as it always used to. Oh, we lost every camera. I'm pretty
Did
sure.
you lose every camera?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're coming back.
They're coming back. All right. The golf lab one needs to be on. Oh, Liam, you just have to allow the golf lab one to allow for video. It says that the host stopped it.
Let me see. Let me see. How's that? There we go.
Got it.
We'll figure the Zoom thing out.
All right.
We didn't know how to fit clubs when we started either.
So I'll kind of walk you guys through this as I do this. Let's clip some space. So
yeah, this is pretty
whenever
cool
we start this, you have to set the reference. So we always have our block here that gets the loft at 90 degrees and the face at 0. And the lie is set to 90 degrees. So now that we're set, I can pull that off. And I can get the actual club in. So whenever we do the loft and lie for a sleeve perspective, typically like when we always do it, we set it at 0, face angle to 0, and we'll measure the loft of the club at 0. But when we're doing sleeve, we're just looking to get the shaft on our vise at a perfect 90 degrees. So we're going to let the face sit however it wants to sit, and the loft to be whatever it is from that setting. So our goal is to get this on. And typically I wouldn't do this with someone's shaft because then I can mark exactly where I would want to be straight on. But let's get a bit of angle, make sure I'm actually straight.
When we were going through all this stuff, just to elaborate a bit on what Carson's talking about, it's tough because the manufacturers don't share their protocols and they all do things differently. So we had to come up with something, and so there's a big difference between, how different sole designs cause the driver to sit at rest. And so that's where in certain applications we'll have the driver head, floating zeroed out to just get face mapping. Because what we want to know is if we go 10 millimeters to the toe, how much curvature is there relative to the center point, not relative to the target line. And so as you're looking through there as well, we've got, it measures face angle. There's 2-point contact, that pronged thing that's pretty close to the foresight fiducials. It measures the loft with that vertical flat bar and where that touches the face, and then the lie angle is the manual crank that Carson was turning. So this angular measurement machine is what allows us to get the full profile of the club head.
Okay, so what I was doing there, the first thing I always do is I try to level the club so that the lie is 0, right? Because if the lie isn't level with the machine, that loft, that facing angle is all going to be incorrect. So whenever we do this, first get that down. So we got the lie here at 56.7. And then when we get the club on the touch point of the middle, our loft is actually 10.8.
Okay.
And the face angle is -2.
And is that what's our head setting on right now?
That's standard.
Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Yep. And what's the stated loft on the bottom of the club?
10.5.
All right. Awesome.
All right. So now I'm going to pull this off.
Yeah. So let's go. Let's. You want to crank the loft all the way up or all the way down?
Let's go all the way up.
All right. We've got Oliver, just saw you dropped another question in there, so we'll get to that and any other questions after Carson wraps up this last test. So if you got any questions, anything about the online, anything we've covered here today or club fitting in general, now's the time to drop it in the Q&A.
And my head's going to block here for a second because I got to make sure this is square. Okay, this does all the way. higher. Okay, check out the loft. My so Y has definitely gone more upright. So it's about 1 degree. Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, just over 1 degree more upright.
Okay.
The loft is now, let me make sure I hit the center, 13.1.
Oof, so it's gone up
Go on the page here.
2.3.
13.5.
Wow.
I was just hitting a little bit low. It seems like, let's see what the fish is doing. Where's that middle there? Where's there? Oh, I pushed the head. That's my fault. Not tight enough. Face angle is negative 1.4.
Wow. So sounds like we got a big change from how the TaylorMade tips responded compared to last year. So
Yeah.
sounds like we got an update to do.
Well, I think the big thing too is twist face. We're starting to change it,
Right. Yeah.
right? Because of twist face, the way the face curving, the touch points are now in kind of a little bit different spot than they used to be. I think our TaylorMade tip, it was the adjustabilities from M3, M4, or M5, M6.
Right.
It was just before twist face, so it was just on the hoggle, not on the twist face.
That's why we got to test every year, so I think a couple of things, just general, takeaways. There was a question earlier about variability. Variability of CG is very low. Variability of, say, like the loft face bulge and roll is pretty consistent. I think some of the biggest variability that we see is in the asymmetrical tip design. So that would be a TaylorMade, a Ping, a PXG. The like the dual cog designs like a Callaway Titleist actually is a little surprising, but they tested out to be a lot more consistent. All right, awesome job there, Carson. Thank you very much for that. And we are down to our last question in the QA from Oliver Morton over in the UK. How would you increase swing weight via the build process? So, I mean, gosh, there's a bunch of options there, Cars. I mean, my favorite's always lead tape. It's not the prettiest, but I like lead tape because I can apply it with minimal change to CG location. But what other things can we do?
Yeah, so we use a lot of tip weights as well to increase swing weight. I think that was question, right? Increase swing weight.
Yep.
So during the fit, yeah, it's lead tape because we're not taking apart the club and adding the swing in. During the build process, we're definitely going to start to use more of the brass weights inside the shaft, so that we were not moving the CG within the head. We're just adding weight down to the bottom of the club.
Yeah, I think, I mean, anything besides those two would kind of change the recipe of the fit, right? You're not going to want to go longer because that's not what the person fitted into. You're not going to want to go heavier because that's not what the person fitted into. I guess the other thing would be if you do have, if it's driver and one of the things you could do is definitely reach out to your manufacturers and get full weight kits so you can actually just change the weight. That's always a good option. Or, if you really want to go into detail and you got a great relationship with the manufacturers, you can order a specific head weight for a specific build. So those are the options. And that is everything we have in the QA. So we'll give people about 5 more seconds to hit enter and drop anything in. But, just want to take a moment to thank everybody for taking time out of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it is. And look forward to having you on for the next one. Hope to see you at all these. And We'll also be reaching out with some feedback, so don't hesitate to let us know how we can get better. Carson, Johnny, great job as always. Thanks, boys.
Thanks for having us.